Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk ETC. I have with me today Darcy Reno. He's the ETCDEV program manager, and I think you will find today's show to be a good one because he's going to talk about the business side of ETC, which is something I'm definitely not good at, and I know is very important. So it's good to have people that are thinking about the business side of things. So welcome, Darcy.
Hey, Christian. Thanks for having me on.
So I think it's great that ETCDEV has a program manager, somebody to coordinate all the lunatics over there. So tell us first of all, give us your background. Tell us more about you in general.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm pretty new to blockchain and cryptocurrency as an industry, at least professionally. I started off as a Linux systems engineer almost 20 years ago in the film industry. Okay. And I spent about 16 or 17 years just kind of growing up through that industry and spent some time at companies like Technicolor and Electronic Arts until I kind of ended as a chief technology officer for the largest animation company in Canada.
Okay.
Throughout my career, I've become more and more entrepreneurial, and I took an opportunity to join a software as a service company in the real estate space, of all things, as CEO. And through that, I was really experimenting with new business models. And one of them was trying to figure out ways to apply blockchain to real estate, for things like fractional ownership and stuff like that. And at some point, I just realized that that particular CEO role wasn't right for me. I wasn't a great fit for real estate, but I had become very interested in blockchain in particular. And I was a small miner back in 2015, mining Ethereum. So I've been poking around for 3 or 4 years before finally joining ETCDEV.
All right, so you've been a CTO as well as a CEO.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's pretty impressive. So you obviously know a lot about technology. As you said, you have a lot of entrepreneurial experience, and you were dabbling with blockchains. So how did and you knew about Ethereum? You said you were mining. So how did you end up as somebody that was dabbling in this space, knew a little bit about Ethereum, a little bit about mining? How did you end up with ETCDEV?
Well, to be honest, the last year I've been operating as an independent consultant, and in my consulting, I just spent a lot of time doing research, and I stumbled across a job posting for ETCDEV, and I knew a little bit about Classic, and I knew a lot about the background and the fork, the DAO hack, and so I was just really interested. So I reached out, not really super interested in a particular role that was advertised, but I just wanted to learn more about the organization. And I ended up meeting Igor or Splix, and it just kind of worked out. And we built this program manager role, which is kind of a combination of some project management, a little bit of strategy in the team. I talked to a lot of outside industry, so a little bit of business development. Just trying to explore ways that we can apply blockchain technologies to other industries.
Okay. Now, what was their pressing need that they had the job opening for? Like, what do you do for you do a lot of things, but what was their immediate need that they needed somebody?
It was project management.
Okay. So they were getting successful and large enough, the projects, that they couldn't just do it all on their own via email, but they needed to bring in some professional help.
Yeah, that's about it. We've turned into a 10-person team right now, and we're not really big, but we do plan on doubling the team over the next 3 to 6 months.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we're really investing in engineering, some a little bit of administration, some marketing, but
Okay.
for the most part, it's going to be engineering based growth.
Okay. All right. And so I assume that means you kind of pay attention to the deadlines, making sure people are staying on schedule and there's no hangups, holdups. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. I'm always trying to, within reason, uphold at least internal deadlines. But what I've found is a lot of what we're doing is research and development.
Okay.
So it's very exploratory creation of technology.
Okay.
So that's hard to. It's not always easy to put your finger on what a solid, like how long should something take
Right.
when
Right.
it's complex and it's you're taking a novel approach to something.
Right. Now, I'm going to reveal my ignorance about program management, but I've heard Scrum is a popular management system for software development. Do you use that or do you use some other buzzword that I should know about?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, a number of years ago, I became a certified Scrum Master,
Okay.
kind of middle management in my career. Really believe in it. And I actually tried applying some core fundamentals of Scrum and Agile in general to the ETCDEV team.
Okay.
And one of the things I found, it wasn't a great fit because we have a number of different, we're not just building one product, so we've got multiple
Right.
teams.
Okay.
So what I've actually found is Kanban is more the best or a more suitable approach to project management within our team. And Kanban is essentially just a different kind of agile, and we're really kind of moving towards a DevOps or like a lean
Okay.
way of constant deployment. So
Uh-huh.
we release code pretty fast
Mhm.
and pretty consistently. Um, and all because we're a completely remote team, um, all of the developers move at their own pace.
Okay.
So we've got a lot of stuff happening every given day, or any given day rather. So it doesn't. I found we've had to put our own project management methodology in place, which a lot of remote teams end up doing. It's hard to find a cookie cutter approach that just fits a remote team really well.
Okay. So because it's a lot of R&D, because it's remote, the developers are remote. Because of that, there's no one size fits all. There's no existing system like so you had to make modifications that were specific, fine-tuned for etc dev, and so that probably took some care and some thought to come up with that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that we've got a perfect system. Every week we learn and we talk pretty openly about ways that we can improve the process and just get better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, definitely, yeah. So I'm excited to hear about your thoughts on the business side of ETC. Now, um, you you said you're doing business development among many other hats that you're wearing. So why don't we start with that? Like when you approach other organizations and you're trying to sell ETC, what do you like? What's your sales pitch? Like, why is it important technology? Why
Well,
don't we start there?
I think that's a key part. Both Splix and I do what you'd call business development, and it's really not reaching out to a lot of new community, but reaching out to a lot of our existing contacts. And I don't have a sales pitch. I find that a lot of industry in general is really curious about blockchain. So as soon as they hear that I'm in the space, they actually start exploring ways that they can leverage blockchain in their own business. And I find one thing my stance is actually more pragmatic or conservative. I'm actually a bit of a skeptic on applying blockchain to every possible use case.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's just a healthy skepticism.
Right.
I'm really excited about what we can apply it to, but we need to use the right tool to solve, make sure we're solving the right problem.
Right. It's kind of like the old Dilbert cartoon where if you put cloud in front of anything, right, everybody gets excited and you got all the investors. So yeah, there has to be care and thought put into what you're doing with blockchain technology. Certainly, I think everybody would agree with that.
Definitely. And there's so quite often when I'm talking to these third parties, I'm really trying to explore their use cases and understand like who the users are. Are they actual end users, or are they internal developers? So that as we're at ETC designing and building out our technology stack and our offering, we can kind of figure out exactly where we need to solve those user stories.
Right.
And exactly what, we're focusing on things like side chains and things like that. So ways to introduce performance as well as introduce interoperability across chains.
Okay.
And that's an excellent entry point for third-party developers to put their applications on blockchain. So I'm really exploring like ways that those third-party developers can put transactional-based applications or IoT applications onto side chains.
Okay, so the reason, if I understand correctly, for using side chains is because, right, you could tweak it for your specific application, and maybe it can have better throughput. Is that correct? Is that one reason?
There's a few things. I think some of it comes down to being able to pick your consensus mechanism. Proof of work.
Okay.
May or may not be the right approach. Proof of authority may or may not be the right approach. And to also give business levers to a blockchain application. So let's say you want to be able to select how much security and how much performance you use, and the trade-offs are just more or less gas. So,
okay.
Giving a business the ability to say, well, this is not a very valuable workload, so we don't want to spend a lot of gas on transactions and high throughput and things like that.
Okay.
But we haven't exactly figured it out yet, but we're really starting to narrow it down.
Okay, and so would some of these people want what are called private or permissioned blockchains that they peg to the ETC blockchain? Is that?
Yeah, so that's one of the scenarios where we've been talking through. And have put a lot of effort into. And it's also one of the trends that I saw. I was at Consensus this year, and obviously the big push was enterprise on the blockchain, and it seemed like teams were taking very similar approaches. Spin up a private network of nodes with their own side net, and either checkpointing or pegging or whatever terminology you want to use, right. Checkpointing that to a main net. And I'll be honest, some of us are struggling in ETCDEV to really understand those use cases that require a private blockchain versus a public.
Right.
And I don't think we've really nailed that down. There's one other thing that side nets potentially open up opportunities is in the area around compliance. So you can hopefully build industry-specific compliance for financial or like GDPR. So customer protection, stuff like that.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. I had the same confusion, struggle trying to understand the business use cases for permissioned blockchains. And I think if I could just tell you what little I know. So I think you're right. You can have greater performance by giving up the trustlessness by not using proof of work. And you can also have very fine-tuned privacy protections, right? You can go in there and customize that to your heart's content. And you can have new consensus mechanisms like voting. You can also control who gets to join your private blockchain system. So access control, faster, right? Better performance, fine-grained privacy. Those are the reasons that you would give up the trustlessness which public blockchains have. And then I thought when I first heard that people would take these private permissioned blockchains and they would periodically write state like to ETC, I thought that was brilliant because in a sense that was like having your cake and eating it too, right? The best of both worlds.
Exactly. And our theory is that how by every now and then leveraging some proof of work consensus on the main chain, you can scale up or scale down your tolerance for security and your willingness to spend money on transaction fees. There's a lot of strong vision out there, but I think when you think about business transactions, just in general, there's always a factor of trust. Very rarely is there a completely trustless business deal or transaction. You trust Bob, so you buy something from him, or you trust Apple, so you buy their phone. There's a certain amount of like trust just to brands, even like Coca-Cola and whatnot.
All right.
So, one of the biggest advantages to a blockchain is that trustlessness. And
yes.
In a digital e-com kind of or digital finance kind of way, trustless makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
But applying that notion to traditional business, we're still trying to figure out what some of those really strong use cases are.
What are some strong use cases for trustlessness?
Yeah, exactly. And one area where I'm doing a lot of research and where I think there's a lot of momentum is digital collectibles.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Things like CryptoKitties and like what the Rarebits guys do, and like introducing digital scarcity.
Okay.
I think that's a really interesting concept that is going to become more and more prevalent in gaming and in digital card collecting and in fully digital transactions. Okay.
All right. So something where so digital collectibles is one way that area where you'd want trustlessness. What about anytime you're dealing with something valuable, not just collectibles, but like a monetary system, right?
Yeah, 100%. Wherever there's a monetary system backing it, definitely.
Or also, this is pretty ambitious, but it doesn't have to just be money that is a sensitive asset that we want trustlessness for. But I've often thought that we should have a digital passport system, right? The reason we don't just have an Oracle database managing every country's passports is not all the countries would trust whoever was managing that Oracle database or Microsoft database, whatever. But with a blockchain, trustless blockchain system, presumably you could get all the countries in the world to buy into it. So some things like that I see. What do you think about that idea?
I think that those are really, so I'm two-sided. I think that, there's cut and dry business use cases today that we need to focus on. But then I think part of me really likes to think about the opportunities around fully democratized infrastructure and services based around blockchain. And so that's a good example of that. It would be non-profit. It would be moving the world to a more of a global society.
Right.
And I think it's an incredibly hard sell.
Okay.
But I think like the one advantage that blockchain has is that there is an underlying financial mechanism in it. So you can start doing things like democratizing IT infrastructure, which is what's happening with the miners.
Right.
And then we've built a software abstraction layer to run applications and dApps, which is integrated in HTC and others. And by building in these internal economies, machine economies between hardware and software, you do actually take away some of the pressure, like the business pressure for some of these to actually be paying products.
Okay.
So I think that long term it will open up those kind of opportunities, such as like your passport example or voting examples.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that at the end of the day, there needs to be a factor of trust with a lot of these, because even with your oracles, the oracle trusts some um, uh, piece of information.
Right.
So it's hard to say in a global landscape with passports who would be the most trusted point to manage and administer that system.
Oh, I presumably every country would have a government agency that would have rights to put their citizens' information into the blockchain database for their country. And I'm just making this up, but
Yeah,
that's
sure.
something like that.
Yeah, maybe it'd be run by somebody like the United Nations or something.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so that passport is one idea. Side chains, you've elaborated. We talked about private permissioned blockchains is what businesses like that. Even though we're not 100% sure why they're so excited about that. Any other things that come up in your discussions, business development?
It's less about the thing and more about how companies could actually use it. And I think
Okay.
the number one common theme that I've seen is that right now we've got a whole bunch of teams building blockchain tech, and they're blockchain engineers and developers. And most companies in the world have some sort of they've got traditional IT, and they've got full stack web developers. And
Okay.
there's this divide between the blockchain, most blockchain stacks and traditional web developers. And I think that, from ETC's devs perspective, but we're really focused on building bridges between blockchain and web developers and application developers. So they don't have to become blockchain developers themselves.
Okay.
For the most part, they don't really care about their database. They don't really care about where their data or how their data is being stored. They just want to know that it's a consumable resource. So we're doing things like building out software, an SDK, and APIs that are more accessible to traditional web full stack developers.
Oh, so I think you're saying that we want to make DApp development so easy that you don't even know or care about the blockchain details, and the reason you're talking about that is that what attracts order of magnitude more developers.
That's exactly it. And
Okay.
my hope would be 5 or 10 years from now, however long, nobody's even thinking about blockchain. It's just a fundamental global infrastructure that developers can build applications on top of that are very user friendly.
Right.
We don't really have that yet today.
Right. Now, since you worked with Linux for so many years, that reminded me of Linus. Somebody asked him what an operating system was, and he made some comment that it was kind of like something you just said that we should aspire to. He said the OS shouldn't be something that you even know is there or pay attention to. It should just work so well in the background that you never think about it, right? Like most people don't know that their Android phone has Linux under the hood. It just does its job.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that's a great analogy. And we're not there yet today.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time just solving the blockchain specific challenges and not really building the applications. And we haven't seen a lot of excellent product people come over to blockchain yet, because it's just not consumable enough as a technology.
Right. No, we haven't. I always, when I teach classes on blockchains, I'll encourage my students that the Googles and the Facebooks and the Amazons of the blockchain space haven't been developed yet. So there's a lot of low hanging fruit, right, for people that come up with develop good ideas. But yeah, we haven't really seen the too many killer apps, as they say in software.
No, not yet. We were actually talking about this in ETCDEV the other day, and I can't remember who one of the guys mentioned search for blockchain.
Okay.
If somebody can crack search for across blockchain in an interoperable blockchain.
Okay.
They'll become that Google of the blockchain world.
Okay. Yeah. No. There you go. So anybody listening out there, maybe that'll give them the seed of an idea. Yeah. So
Totally.
actually, can you mention? So search is one need that's come to mind. Can you identify other needs and wants that might lead to good ETC applications? Any thoughts on that?
I think so. I think it's kind of just like reinventing the internet. So all those things that you actively use today, it's like global file systems. And I think that IPFS and Filecoin are. I'm very excited to see what they're able to do.
Right.
And but then on top of that, there's once you have ways to store data, then you need ways to distribute data. So CDNs. And quite often it'll be application-specific CDNs. CDNs for video, CDNs for.
I think you better spell out what CDNs are for the audience.
Sorry, content delivery networks.
Okay. So you've just said something encouraging to me, and I don't. Maybe other people will pick up on it. But one of the things it sounds like you're saying is, you don't necessarily have to think of this brilliant, completely original idea. There's a lot of work to just port what we're already doing onto the blockchain, right? Make it decentralized, make it tokenized, make it trustless. And there's plenty of opportunity just with that. Is that one of the, did I get that correct?
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you look at a lot of the companies that are ICOing, like some of them are doing that. Like there's a lot of moonshot kind of companies out there where they've got really big visions. But I think whenever I've spoken to anybody at these companies, they're not building the actual product that they raised their money for yet. Okay. They're still building like the foundational, like how do we decentralize this thing, and then how do we build tools to start creating our application. So we're all only at the very early stage right now.
Now that part kind of confused me, because as far as how to build their application, what to build it on, we've got, we have Turing complete smart contract systems in Ethereum Classic, as well as other ones. So that's, at least that part is presumably settled. So what, you made it sound like even there's still some hangups or holdups. Can you elaborate on what, is that just what you're saying about that it's still too difficult for your average developer?
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you look at all of the like the Ethereum improvement proposals, there's a lot, and some of them are for vertical specific solutions to problems. I know that there's a lot of people looking at digital collectibles and trying to create different standards for that, because the existing standards don't quite fit their, like smart contract standards don't quite fit their requirements.
Okay.
And that's just at the contract level, let alone like replacing Facebook or replacing Netflix or building a Google Cloud platform,
right,
based on decentralized infrastructure. Like those applications aren't ready yet, or a ways away.
So it's not so easy. Well, presumably it's easy to learn Solidity or whatever other smart contract language they like, and then sit down and write a smart contract. But you're saying that there's a lot more to it than that.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of UX, just to understand how users interact with this kind of stuff. Just think about it. Think of your grandma or your mom using a blockchain application.
Right.
So she's either got to get a wallet or a couple different wallets because she wants to do a couple things on some different networks and store a few different coins. So maybe she's going to interact with some smart contracts or tokens. So she needs to at some point get MetaMask running, and so she can buy a CryptoKitty. And like right away, that experience sucks. it's already way too complicated for 99% of the users in the world.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. So it's not as easy as just visiting a website and you sign up and you're ready to go.
Exactly. So I always, whenever I'm talking to companies, and those going back to your biz dev or relationships conversation, I always just try to manage expectations around what's real, what's realistically accomplished in a year and what's realistically accomplished, in multiple years.
Right. Now, just to add to what you're saying, one thing that I don't know how to solve this. So with decentralized currencies, it's great because you have control over your wallet by just downloading your keys, or actually don't even ever have it see the internet, have a paper wallet. And that's great that it's decentralized. And so you have control, but to your point, I could see grandma accidentally losing that file, and then she loses her tokens for that application, getting really frustrated. So I don't know how to have the both benefits, right? Have it decentralized so you have control, but then avoid people getting frustrated when they lose their tokens or make some mistake.
Exactly, and I think we have a lot of learning to figure out. I guess ways to remove those points of friction.
Mm-hmm.
But we will. I'm actually quite confident.
So now, what about if you just had your web interface and your backend was on the ETC blockchain? You're talking to a smart contract, and so something like that, the users and other people wouldn't necessarily know or care that it was a blockchain that was involved. But is that the way to go, to have everything with the web interface, with the website, and hide the fact that you have this tricky, complicated blockchain technology behind it?
Quite possibly. Or I think what's more realistic in the future is just really good APIs and SDKs for application developers to build mobile apps on top of that just operate on the phone and abstract all of that decentralized infrastructure and smart contracts and stuff like that. And I mean, if you think about the amount of time that people are spending on phones, and if you think about the rate of development in blockchain, it's only realistic to think that the majority of users will be mobile in the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh, yes, good point. Yes, people will be using their phones, maybe even more than accessing websites. They'll be using mobile apps. And so, okay, so if there was a standard API, standard application programming interfaces for that developers were comfortable with, then maybe that would really supercharge app development that
Totally.
uses blockchains. Yeah, good point. So you said that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit just converting existing functionality to blockchains. Right? People are trying to think about a blockchain Facebook, blockchain search, blockchain Netflix. Do you have any ideas, or any thoughts on some new things that nobody's doing that somebody needs to develop on a blockchain, a company or application to do?
I don't know.
I guess if you did, you wouldn't want to tell me, right? You go and do the ICO for it.
Yeah, maybe I'd do an ICO and raise a gajillion dollars.
Right.
I don't know. I think pretty much every idea that you can have is being explored, whether it's realistic or not. I don't know if I'm the best to comment on that, but I know that I've had conversations with people around everything from voting to independent citizenships to fractional ownership of real estate to investment funds. Like so many different ideas to social networks, and sometimes there's some really good use cases. I think that fractional ownership of real estate could be a good one, or investment funds for investing in technology or investing in joint ventures, things like that. Aside from that, it's hard to say. I don't know what a good idea is. If I did, I would have found my success in entrepreneurship.
Right. So as we come to a close, then why don't you share? Do you have any thoughts about what in the next couple of years, how you see your role and at ETCDEV growing and changing, and what do you think the biggest needs and goals, desires are? Can you want to touch upon that?
A little bit, and we're still exploring this kind of stuff. We're going to be a bigger team. I think, for a lot of people don't know about ETC, and I think that's going to start changing just based on some of the projects in our roadmap, and we plan to bring on some more business development, actual business development, and some people just to go out and build partnerships with industries.
Okay.
Support workloads on ETC. Some of those are around IoT. We're going to be putting a lot of work into Sputnik VM and optimizing that for low power devices. So the next logical step there is to start talking to Internet of Things companies, and that'll be one direction we go. But we're really trying to build Ethereum Classic as a platform for machine-to-machine blockchain transactions. Not so much trying to get into people-to-people legal transactions, or some of those more complicated real-world challenges. Because once you're dealing with people, the use cases become incredibly complex.
So you're not so focused then, you're saying, like making the mobile app that talks to a blockchain as much as the IoT. You see a lot more potential with, when you say machine to machine, that pretty much means IoT, right?
Yeah, it can mean IoT or it can mean software.
Okay, all right.
Systems.
But you're saying that you see the most potential in IoT type initiatives for ETC. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's just the direction that we've picked.
Okay, and so it's good to hear that there's so much going on to stimulate business development on ETCs, and so it's great that ETCDEV is not just creating great technology, but they have people that are working on like the business side of things. So I commend you for all you're doing.
Well, thanks a lot. I mean, it's early days, but we're just going to become more and more formalized and grow as a team and just get better at what we're doing.
Right. So you've said in the near term, one big message is that the tools have to improve to attract more developers. Is there anything in the near term that you think that people need to hear about that they don't know about, or that they have the wrong idea about?
I don't know. I think if anybody's curious about ETC, just reach out. I'm happy to talk to anybody anytime on Twitter. We see there's a lot of people that have no idea what's going on with Ethereum Classic.
Okay.
So read our blogs, check out our website. We're starting to get better at publishing content. And we're working close with guys like Piscal on trying to leverage each other's social and online campaigns just to share information and educate the communities on what we're doing.
Okay.
And at some point in the near future, we'll probably be bringing on somebody to just help focus on community development ourselves, and our community will be more the third-party developers.
Okay. All right. So would you say that a good message one of the things to end on people can take with them is that they have to be patient, right? Like you're just starting, the tools are slowly maturing, you're working on business development. But right, we can't compare it to like the World Wide Web and WebComp, right? We have to just be patient, and it's slowly growing. It's coming, but it's not going to happen overnight. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it'll be like the smartphone. It's only been like 11 or 12 years since we really had smartphones, and look at what a change they've introduced into the world. And it's actually been a pretty short time frame. A decade actually flies by.
Oh, that's a good point. So yes, every generation of, the next big thing takes over the world faster.
Exactly.
And so to be encouraged, right? We have to be patient, but the smartphone is only like a decade, a little more than a decade old. So your point is that things change fast, right? And they change faster as time goes on. So yeah, so definitely we have to stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. All right. Yes, very good. So thank you again, Darcy, for talking with me, and I appreciate everything you're doing and your thoughts. And I will put a link in the description so that if people want to get a hold of you, they can and chat with you. I think you're doing some great stuff. And yeah, so thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me on the show. I've wanted to meet you for some time because I've been listening to it for a while.
Great. So, all right. Well, take care.
Thank you too.
All right. Bye.